everyone. This is Karunya Richard, Support Executive at Institute of Inspiring Innovation. Welcome. Thank you for joining us on Hello Zo, a virtual talk show where we showcase extraordinary people and their little extras. Today's talk is based on the theme External Engineering is Ordinary, Inner Engineering is Extraordinary, from the book A Little Extra. Here we have Arzo Balu Masti, an entrepreneur and a deep tech professional. Beyond his engineering, he is a performing classical musician and a yoga practitioner and teacher. If you have any questions during the talk show, request you to type them into the chat box. We'll bring them up in the end. Now, let me invite Naveen Lakur, our Chief Innovation Coach at Institute of Inspiring Innovation and the author of the book A Little Extra, to the spotlight to host.
Thank you very much, Karunya. I'm so happy and glad to be here to host Hello Zo, and today's Zo being Balu Masti, a good friend. And I know him from many years now, and I know what a wonderful person and a lot of little extras which are there. And this talk show is based on my book, A Little Extra. And today we're going to talk about many extras that Balu Masti has got us to show. And I'm sure it's going to inspire, and we'll draw many insights from this talk and interaction with Balu Masti, right? And I want to base this talk on a theme, which is a quote in my book, A Little Extra. And that theme is external engineering is ordinary, inner engineering is extraordinary. Knowing Balu, who is an amazing engineer, so let us look at what he's got to share. And here is the theme. The theme, as I said, is external engineering is ordinary, inner engineering is extraordinary. So let's welcome Balu Masti onto the spotlight. And let me start with a question. Balu, welcome. And can you distinguish between external engineering and inner engineering?
Hi, Naveen. Thank you very much for having me on the show here. External engineering and inner engineering are two related things. I see external engineering as something you do which is very visible to the outside world. It could be as a result of your karma, maybe it's your job, maybe it's your whatever. It is something that's very visible. Inner engineering, on the other hand, is something you do from within yourself, and within, you do it for yourself, within yourself. And in order to, my belief is that you have to have very strong inner engineering for yourself, very inward looking, which will help you be a better external engineer in whatever you do. That I think is the key, the way I see it is.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for bringing that distinction. How do you nurture inner engineering? Because external engineering, what is visible, we can all relate to. It's much harder to relate to how do you nurture, how do you relate to inner engineering. So what would be 3 ways that you would nurture inner engineering?
My journey towards becoming, or to I should say, realize more of my inner self. There are 3 things that kind of are very dear to me that help me look inward. I say this in a particular order. They're all important to me. Number 1, classical music, very dear to me. Number 2, yoga practitioner and something else that I also do, which is very dear to me, is photography. So all these 3 things, 3 activities, 3 things I've pursued for many years have helped me look inward and become a better person.
Oh, yeah. In fact, all the 3 you are demonstrating it. You know, the way you are, the setup is, and the musical instruments and the sound and the words itself is musical. The second is the yoga, the way meditative state that you are speaking itself is demonstration of your yoga. I'm sure we will get a chance to even dive a little deeper to see your photography and how that takes you inside. We will probably go in the same order that you did mention.
Sure, that will be fine.
Yeah, I can see the beautiful Veena out there in front of you. I could also hear that little music which started when you started talking. Um, can you play something for us right now, right here, uh, to get to feel what is this music is all about and how it is shaping your inner engineering?
Sure. So a little thing to also mention. This is the beautiful Saraswati Veena. It's India's national instrument. Um, it's India's national instrument. This is the beautiful Saraswati Veena. What it is it's made out of um, jackfruit wood. It's, believe it or not, it's 80 plus years old. It's a gift my mother gave me, and I cherish it. I use it. This is my primary concert veena. And when we talk about it, we will see how it is such an ancient but such a powerful instrument. And there are elements of human body that are etched all over into it in terms of how it has evolved over time. I'll play a little bit of music to get started.
That was mesmerizing, Balu, and I can see and feel Vatapi Gana, and I can see also for the reason on your left, I see Ganesha, and I'm a Ganesha collector. So my eyes went on to Lord Ganesha out there, and then now when you're playing a number, which is close to his heart, and many of them start their career with playing this number, right?
Yeah.
And also I see for today's topic that we are talking about external engineering and inner engineering. You actually demonstrated both. You spoke about the Saraswati Veena itself, and the engineering of that, the material used and the anatomy of the Veena.
Yes.
And I can see on your right there is a power point, which is the plug point there for for the source of energy for external engineering equipments. On your left, I can see Lord Ganesha,
Yes.
who is also known as the master of five senses that human beings have, and he is a master of engineering, of inner engineering. So it's a blend of both. I can't believe that what a setup this is, and I'm so excited. Now I definitely want to now listen to more of the music. Tell me, which is how many concerts you would have played in your lifetime till now?
I guess counting the fact that I started quite early and then I took a long, I was a child artist and then there was a long break. I was outside and then I came back. So maybe a few hundred concerts over the last so many years, maybe 200 plus. And my memory is mainly in the recent ones that I've played. So 200 plus.
Wow, that is fantastic. 200 plus concerts. And which among those would be the one that you would have relished the maximum? And, uh, can you recall that? Which one did you relish the maximum?
Yeah, it, definitely, all concerts are important and good and they challenge you. That's why they say it's like getting onto a cricket field or something, even a concert arena, that day, what your form is and all. So everything has been important and good, but in terms of what I aspire to, and everybody starts aspiring for improvement, right? So for me, the first big opportunity to play in a big on a big stage in Chennai, which is like the one of the big things you can do in Carnatic music field, right? So I played uh, concerts in Chennai during the December season, which is the Margari Masam, where a lot of music goes on. So to be able to get an opportunity and play there and get recognized is it's the holy grail. I
Wow.
still believe. Bangalore, Mysore, which I've grown up in Mysore and Bangalore. All these are, I'm not saying anything, hopefully that's politically incorrect or anything, but
No, no,
yes, that
it
was.
is. So, what platform was that? What's the name of?
I played in several places there, but I think the one that I really relished, enjoyed the most, in many ways, Karthik Fine Arts, Krishna Gana Sabha, Marga, all these have been really good.
Okay.
All of them good.
Do you want to pick one of those and play a short piece on, the one that you enjoyed the most there?
Okay, I'll play a short piece here.
Wow, that was fantastic.
It was a short piece as you asked me to play.
Wow, fantastic. It is, just transported us to a different world. And I think this is the world that is called the inner world that you were referring to. Just got a feel and an experience of that.
Yes, and like all things, this is the end product of a lot of inner engineering. To be able to play at a certain level or confidence, you need a lot of sadhana, which is absolute inner engineering. Sadhana is practice. It develops concentration, it develops focus, it develops um, muscle memory, all the things that you need to be able to present an external product. And that product could be for yourself or for others. At some point, it becomes inconsequential. What where you do what you do. That's my journey. I'm not yet there. That's the perfect yogi.
Wow, amazing. If you would have aspired for a platform where you would love to play, which platform would that be?
There are a lot of wonderful places. That's a journey that I look forward to. But yeah, just since you put me in a spot, uh, maybe I would love to play in like BBC Studios for the Darbar festival that they conduct every year in the UK. I've seen such beautiful programs and wonderful artists play there. So yeah, I mean, you asked me to aim for the moon, and maybe I should.
Wow, that's a fantastic one. Now that I asked for it, and you are declaring that, and Shabdam Brahmam, they say. Maybe if
Thank
God is
you.
listening and if He puts you on spot and says you have to perform there right now, are you prepared? And which one would you play? Can you please play one number, full number, the one that you would play there if there is a chance?
Yeah, I think you're always prepared, but you're always underprepared, but you're always over to the instance. There's no end to it, right? But yeah, let me maybe I can play this little thing, which is a little attractive piece as well that that we play on Greenham sometimes.
the main portion of the song that I would love to play, or something like that. Yeah.
Wow. Can you brief a little about the song itself? What is the song?
This is a very beautiful composition on Lord Rama. It's by a wonderful composer and Patnam Subramaniam Iyer. It's called Raghuvamsha Sudha. It's an instrumental composition. Lot of instrumentalists have given different flavors to this, different colors to this, and it's one of those things that I enjoy playing whenever there's an opportunity, and the occasion asks for it.
Wow, this is amazing.
It's like a band-like thing, I mean, when you play with multiple instruments, it actually sounds very nice.
And you said if this occasion was there in London, where in the Darbar when you were playing, I'm sure listening to this wonderful music, even the spirit of Sean Connery, who recently left this earth, and he would also be mesmerized and he would like to come. And if they said, "Oh, Sean Connery is entering the hall,"
Okay.
would you play a little 007 theme? Would you accommodate that? And if so, how would it be?
Where did you come up with that? Okay. Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that was for the great man Sean Connery, how we all grew up with him, right?
Absolutely. And in fact, actually, this is also taking me back to my college days, where this is the music with mouth, not with a super veena like this, right? Playing. With our oral music, we used to walk along and give this music next to some of the girls who used to pass around in the.
007, yeah.
Yeah, the 007, right? So now if at all you had to do this, then yeah, man, so many girlfriends would have been there for you. So Balu, I also see the wonderful engineering mind of yours, right? See, you said this is an ancient, or rather 80 years old Saraswati Veena, and and you said your mom gifted this for you. What a wonderful gift! And I know how well you're taking care of it. And I also see some modern connection there. I can see an electric uh, pipe running, wire running, and connecting to what is that wire, and what does it do?
So I'm still quite audible, right? Please let me
Yes,
know.
you are.
So this, as you said, it's blending modern technology with a very ancient divine instrument. It's a very divine instrument. Goddess Saraswati uses this, right? It symbolizes so many things in our tradition.
Yeah,
So
she
this,
has of knowledge, and it's her instrument. So it is at a very premium level in terms of when it comes to the stature of it, right? So fantastic.
so the way I'll just take a minute to explain. So the way this instrument is constructed, this is hollow wood, and the more seasoned the wood is, the better the sound is. So maybe 100 years ago, even not even 100, maybe until about 50 years ago, music was played in like courts and temples and places. So natural sound was all people could hear. So the acoustics come from the hollowness of this, and this is a fretted instrument with strings, and there's like beeswax, and you there are 24 frets here. symbolizing the spinal cord, all that, is a whole different thing. There's all science behind Veena. And when you play Veena, it's a lot of, you use a lot of acupuncture points and so on. So coming to this, when you play this, you hear the sound, um, in its most beautiful original form. But that may not be enough, or not good enough, loud enough for either big hall, or even to be able to do this webcast or whatever, right? So nowadays we have these nice amplifiers, we have enough audio systems that can take the sound and do the best, make sure that the best representation of the original sound is reproduced and broadcast or recorded. So this is a magnetic pickup. So it picks up the vibrations, the sound that is produced, and it sends it. Now I have behind the camera, there's a very elaborate high-tech sound engineering system that sits there. It takes sound from all these sources, then I apply graphic equalizers, try to get the sound that I like, and then the sound feeds itself into my DSLR, one of the most beautiful cameras that Nikon makes, which I'm a big Nikon maker. So it comes there, and from there it is coming to Zoom now. So all this whole path is the most beautiful ancient instrument and the most modern technology in sound and video.
Yeah. Oh, this is a great blend of the ancient wisdom and the modern science, right? It's in demonstration today. Talk to us a little more about your engineering side of it. What did you study? Where did you study? And then we will talk about more of your engineering work too. So, where did you study?
As a place, I entirely till my undergraduation, I grew up in Mysore. I studied in Mysore, very dear to me. I went towards central. I got my CBSE 12th standard till then, and then I was a product of computer science and engineering from SJC Mysore. Now it's JSS University. And it was a very beautiful experience learning about computers when computers were just being introduced, right? About that time when I graduated. And then with that exposure, I went abroad. I got into masters, and I also did a computer science. I got a computer science degree in masters. Sorry, a master's degree in computer science.
Where was that? Where did you do your masters in computer science?
I went to University of Nebraska at Lincoln, and I specialized in my thesis was something to do with operating systems, which is always dear to me. So all core computer science, over the course of my studies there.
Wow, that's hardcore engineering then. We are getting into the chip level and operating system as between the software and the hardware, right? So after that, what did you do? And after your masters, walk us through a little journey of yours in technology space and what you did. Where did you do? What impact did you create?
Right after my master's, in fact, a day after I got my degree, I flew into my next job. I joined Qualcomm in San Diego, where my journey for many years after that was designing wireless systems, software for wireless systems, different flavors, different avatars of wireless technology. Some of it related to was related to uh, satellite communication. Some of it was related to low speed to high speed data networks, and eventually I worked on a lot of the modern technologies that are ubiquitous out today, and I played my role making 2G, 3G, and all that the stacks that you see every 10 years, right? I was very much a part of that. I have my contribution and my experience, playing my role in that.
Wonderful. If you have to recall one of the innovation journey that you had during these phase where you built these platforms, which is actually foundation for today's even communication, which is happening right now amongst us, right? So can you walk us through a little of that innovation journey that you would have gone through? And then my next question would be, what learnings did you have from that? So first, your journey of innovation.
Uh, the most beautiful thing about working in Qualcomm was every day was a challenge, an innovation that literally in some way you had to come up with. We were the new, Qualcomm as a company was the new kid on the block, challenging status quo at that point. So anything you do was had to be innovative, creative. You as a fresh grad, you start getting problems thrown at you that you have to think out of the box. You may not have enough computing resources. You may not have any prior knowledge of. There was no Google, right? Or many times when you're doing creative things, there is nothing that's on that today you can Google. So you have to think out of the box, and that's where I think you talk a lot about creativity and innovation, status quo, challenging the status quo. So it was very similar. Every bit of the journey was coming up with new things or better ways to do new things. But always, I believe, and I still think that's the right thing to do. Innovation should be coupled with simplicity. The elegance is in simplicity. So I've always stood for keep it simple, but it has to be very, very creative, innovative. So one project that I remember we did was when we didn't have enough computing resources, because when you're in engineering research, you're always pushing the envelope, right? Today you might have petabytes of memory, but what if you're solving some problem like modeling human brain or movement of planets, where you probably need or doing something around medical sciences where you need a lot more computing power than what we have today. You have to come up with. You always have to think beyond what is given to you. That's when you can innovate. Think of it, yeah, creative utilization of resources.
Wow. In fact, you did answer the second part also as to what learnings did you have. But if I have to ask you again, during these innovation journeys that you had, three things if you have to
Oh, yeah, three things.
as learnings that you've had, which might be useful for others.
Number one, thinking out of the box. Very important. That means that you will not have anybody to go and ask, right? So that's one. Number two, attention to detail. Very important to pay attention to detail. Otherwise, it's only the weakest link becomes the biggest Achilles heel. So attention to detail. And third one that you talk about, what did I say? Attention to detail, thinking out of the box, perseverance, unwillingness to give. You should not get deflated and give up. Many times, it might be very disheartening, but you should say that, look, I can do it. I'm going to try to do this. And even if you fail, that's fine. That should become a stepping stone for your next project or next venture or next, whatever you do. Never get deflated. We have a whole lifetime to learn.
Wow. So beautifully said. And from that Qualcomm in San Diego, where did your next journey and the next milestone or the hopping point was?
From one chip company, I joined another chip company, which was Intel.
Okay.
And then I moved to India at that point. Intel was a very mature company, and when I say mature, a lot more processors, a lot more data-driven decisions. In Qualcomm, a lot of decisions were going with gut because the risk taking was much, much, much higher. Whereas because you had to you were on a you were up against the wall most of the time. Whereas in Intel, it was maturity. It was not you know you had to really um, dig in and prove yourself, and only then you got your credit. So in Intel, what I learned was extraordinary focus on customers. The customer is the king, and Qualcomm also had the same culture about customers. But in Intel, it was always like Intel was such a. Even today, I don't work there any longer, but we all had our badges, and in those badges there were goals that every employee had to. Uh, you were measured on it, every quarter, and it included customer satisfaction. It included challenging status quo. It included mutual respect. It also encouraged creative thinking and constructive confrontation. That is something I learned we talk about it, right? Constructive confrontation.
Yes. In fact, all these sound so much closer to inner engineering as against the engineering itself, which is the chip making and the design of it, which happens there, right? So the emphasis, even in this corporates, including the Intel example that you're giving, is so much related to that inner engineering aspect. Yeah. And what kind of engineering side of facility or the opportunity or the innovation journey that you would have had in Intel?
In Intel, it was the most. Um, Intel is a very established workplace, and I was new to working in global teams. Global teams are just, you could get one piece of a chip designed in Mexico, another piece in Israel, another piece in Costa Rica, another piece in India, another piece in US. It's very normal these days. But at that time, to be able to learn to work seamlessly with everybody and yet meet those very difficult deadlines, challenging deadlines all the time, was very big learning. And also, there is a lot of domain knowledge that you don't have when you come into a very established. I mean, Intel was a $30 billion company when I joined. So, a lot of knowledge, a lot of tribal knowledge, as we call it in industry, right? So, how do you actually, and none of that can be an excuse for your productivity, right? I mean, you've taken up a job. So you end up spending the right amount of time on the right things. And for me, the thing was I established teams in India, worked with teams in US, worked on products that helped save, improve the quality of products, quality of Intel testing. Chips before they go, they get tested a lot. So I was in teams that developed very cutting edge tools. I mean, the chips we see today are designed 5 years ago. I mean, it starts at the drawing board. So I got to experience the whole cycle, which was just an amazing amount of creativity, amazing amount of planning, amazing amount of organization. You just have to appreciate how all this falls into place, right? And that's something I really thank for the experience there.
Wow. So one question to you is, what was the trigger that got you to shift from San Diego in the US to India? What was the trigger?
India story. I was always a big believer. I'm a big believer in young India and aspiring India, and we Indian engineers, Indians have contributed a lot to engineering. As we all know, you are such a widely respected traveler. You talked everywhere, you worked everywhere, you've seen, right? So I wanted to come back and experience, be a part of the growth story in India, help work with, I felt that I had very good exposure back in the US, and I wanted to, as companies are growing here, Intel hired me for that actually, saying you bring that experience, you help mentor the aspiring engineers, and let's create great products in India. So
Yes.
that opportunity combining with the beautiful story of growth in India, right? And of course, being with family, who doesn't want that, right?
Wow, it's the best of all, right? And now that satisfaction of contribution, and especially that we can meaningfully contribute, gives a lot of sense of satisfaction.
Indeed, yeah.
So now I know, like, how the product engineering, that experience that you've gained, I'm sure in the corporates you would have learned a lot. How do you think startups could leverage this and, tell us about your interest in startups and or your journey in startups, if you have had any?
Absolutely, and that's precisely the time I met you, and good God's grace and providence, a lot of wonderful things happened as I stepped out of corporate world. Got to meet very wonderful entrepreneurs and people like you. And yeah, I left Intel and I joined Vigyan Labs. It was a very uh, wonderful startup where we were again challenging a lot of the status quo in established ways of doing things. And we had a software product that sold, I mean, millions of millions of users, millions of devices. So to me, the transition was quick, immediate, and in many ways humbling because after 20 years, nearly 20 years in very in corporate world with all the support, you come to an environment where survival is the main thing, survival and growth, right? And so it was a great experience. I donned all roles, started doing engineering, and then I did a lot of work on business development, built up the US OEM business, um, and worked very closely as a US. I was the co-founder for the US wing of Vigyan Labs. Worked with VCs, gone and done pitches. We have worked with accelerators, worked with analysts. So I mean, the beauty in startup is, and no better person than you to appreciate and understand. I still remember you, Naveen, you telling me you will never take a business class flight. I'll always remember that beautiful quote you gave. So I remember, when many times we can't even afford a full fare ticket, right, in the startup when you look at our bottom line. So these were some great experiences, very humbling because you know customer is important, but you begin to realize how much more customers are important in the startup. So you want the only thing always on your radar is how can I get that customer? How can I can how can I sign them on? What kind of opportunity will this person, or how can I get some venture funding? Things like that. All these things were very wonderful experiences, and I should thank all my colleagues in Vigyan Lab for giving that great opportunity. I was one of the front faces, so I learned. It was baptism by fire. I learned everything that you could, literally.
So how different is it working? You did share many. If you have to pick 3 points on working in a corporate as against in a startup, so what are the three things that is useful and excites you in a corporate, and what are the three things that would excite you in a startup?
Corporate, very organized. It's the when you work in a very large company, you have a very good support system, and there you just have to focus on execution, coming up with new ideas. Uh, but that's that much more challenging also because complacency cannot set in. We were always under, our butts were always under fire, so to say, Intel and Qualcomm, because if you faltered for a while, somebody's eating your lunch. So that constant threat always kept you on your toes, but it's extremely competitive. Um, number one, when you are in a corporate setup, you're only as good as what you are in that quarter or the previous quarter. It applies to your performance. There is no room for error. Uh, Second thing that you like is, you get to work with, you have a diversity of people and projects. So that is something I really missed when I came. When I say missed, I mean, it was a choice, but if something, you want to go work on something else, you have the opportunity a year later. And the third thing is again, obviously, if one looks for financial security, nothing like a corporate established company, as when you perform, you get paid. Coming to startup, the very big thing that makes it exciting is the risk itself, because you don't know what's going to happen in like 3 months, 6 months, and every day, you think. I mean, there's never a dull day, right? In startup, it was always like, what's going to happen today? Who's going to call me, or whom am I going to call? That is what keeps you going. The other thing that in startup that is exciting is, you're your boss literally. You're answerable to everybody, but it's not like that organized, right? So there was a time in the startup, by the initial phases, I was thinking, why is I was reporting to my CEO, and why is he not saying anything? I mean, he's not giving me directions, which you're used to, right, in corporates. But then you realize, oh God, many times we are all in it, in the same boat. We don't know what.
Probably even the boss was thinking through what is the next step. So
Then he one day he told me, you go figure out.
yeah,
Then like, okay, then you have to suddenly think, okay, if I do this, if I hire two people, where will money come from?
Yeah.
Or do I have? So this was very exciting, but scary.
yeah,
And then the third part, the most beautiful part was, you are your company space as one of the people in the senior management, right? You interact with a cross section of everybody. I mean, we engineers, that is, at least I thought the whole thing is all about, getting the best design and code. No, you get 3 minutes, 4 minutes to present. How do you do it? I mean, that was the most exciting thing and also scary thing, but I've become better at it now.
absolutely. So, is there any milestone that you cherish in your startup experience that you had? When you achieved that, you even cherish today. So, is there any milestone
Yeah,
that?
I continue to run a consulting startup now. It's a consulting company. So prior to, I left Vigyan Labs after 3.5 years. I think the biggest thing that I cherish is um, developing an OEM, uh, building the OEM business pipeline, working with a large customer. Again, you're up against odds because you're a small company. You have to really prove that you're worth your salt to get the business. And once you get your business, you have to do everything to keep it quarter to quarter. So then the most thrilling thing is when you actually get the PO and the money in the bank, you can actually pay for your expenses, right? So that was a very humbling journey. Similarly, now that I'm doing my own consulting startup and work with a lot of companies, getting every new customer, adding value and keeping them is a very thrilling moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think with a lot of experience gained out of these work, right? Be it in the corporate or in the startups. How do you think you could be a little extra to support many other startups which are coming, and how are you currently doing?
Um, the most beautiful thing with all this is you gain good experience, and I love sharing that with um, other startups now. So I've been very, very active in startup scene in India. Um, I work closely with accelerators. Like one of the accelerators I enjoy working with is T-Hub, Ravi Narayan's T-Hub in Hyderabad, and I've done a lot of work for them. Worked with a lot of companies. I'm also part of TIE. I work with entrepreneurs, uh, uh, predominantly early stage to, when they're bootstrapped and when they're ready for their first and second round. I work with them, help them with just sharing my experiences. I've helped startups with their go-to-market strategies, their product strategies, and many times we just do product architecture and help them get the right mix of engineering and business. How do you balance between the two?
Absolutely. And you are a great engineer. So some of the latest technologies you're very well versed in. Which are those that you see there is going to be a lot of future as we move forward?
I am predominantly a lot of my experience has been at the chip level, at the Mac level, and at the application that mainly deals with a lot of hardware, the big data analysis. So I see IoT amongst the many things that are changing the world, mobile uh, technology and IoT. IoT is changing the world in a very big way. We're pretty much coming out with solutions to do so many things that would have been impossible today, right?
Yeah.
Look how ubiquitous drones are.
Right here on your lap, where you have an ancient instrument. At the same time, you are connecting that to the internet, and you're making even an ancient instrument IoT, like Internet of Things. So, so it's a great example that you're just on your lap. Now that we are talking back about the Veena and the instrument, so this is a great blend of ancient instrument or ancient wisdom which is there as music, and the modern technology that you are using to ensure that it is reaching places, right? So, and a great blend of external engineering and inner engineering, because music itself is meditative, and it is actually it is also medication, they say. It cures people, and it has got a fantastic effect of the inner sense, the inner engineering, right? So
Very much, very much.
any other examples that you can give?
Yoga.
Music is one, and any other examples, which is a great blend of both external engineering and inner engineering?
I don't know, yoga, certainly to me, um, does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, elaborate on that. How and
So,
and you are, and your connection with yoga. How are you connected with yoga?
oh, absolutely. To me, yoga it started out as a necessity in the sense it still is. So I should tell you, all the hours that we sit and spend on the computer, right? It has um, everyone, a lot of people can relate to repetitive injuries. I had this too, many years ago, and when I went to I was living in San Diego, and I went to my doctor, and my doctor said, "Young man, you know, I don't want to give you any medicine for this. Go do yoga." This is an MD, a doctor, an American doctor. So I was having all kinds of pains every day, and I was always big into running and all that, right? At that time. Then I went, and the reason I want to give a little bit background is I went in pain. I went to uh, my yoga guru, who was not my guru at that time, and then I told him, Shashi, I don't want to take medicine. But I want to do all these things. Will you help me? Really, like a guru, he looked at me and said, okay, he doesn't know anything about yoga or anything. He said, it's a process. It's something that you imbibe, you grow into it. I won't say that you won't have pain. Looking back, more than 20 years, I look back, I started going to some yoga classes. I started getting initiated, I started understanding little bits of what he meant. And then over the course of so many years, I'm still not injury free. I have enough broken things, But what yoga has taught me is how do you manage yourself? How do you look at it? Look inward. How do you grow with it? How do you respect it? And how do you meditate with it? So I want to be able to sit and still do my movie editing and video editing or photography. I want to be able to do all my computing profession. I want to be able to play my veena. So what yoga has taught me is God has given you this gift of this human body. Make the best of it. Take care of it. And in the process, you'll realize a lot of things. Yoga is such a deep science. I am nowhere. I'm just beginning to learn bits and pieces of it. Um, Yoga also teaches you to be in the moment. Um, Same with music. When I'm playing, if I don't look at the next fret or the next position, if I don't think of it, I'll go wrong. So in yoga, when you do anything, you just focus on your breath and be in the present. Similarly, in swimming, only think of the next breath. When am I going to take the next breath? You cannot think of the 1 kilometer that you want to swim. So these are all meditative in many, many ways. And in the process, you start realizing and respecting over time, this is my limitation. This is what I can do. I can't do yoga like for others. It's mainly for me. No, it's a little bit of outward, but eventually, you start doing it for yourself. So eventually, this is what I call as inner engineering, looking at yourself, making the best of it. You become calmer. You accept a lot of things. And the earlier you do, the better it is. And then you learn to deal with it. The pain will never go, but how do you manage? Right? And similarly, it spills over to your other work and your other things that you do. You just tend to become a better person, Naveen. I think you're the standing example for all that. I see you calm all the time.
Yeah, I think it is definitely that meditative, right? I love meditation, so I
Yeah.
practice. And we are like ducks. Doesn't mean that when we are calm outside, doesn't mean that we are not working. Actually, internally, it's like duck, right? Outside it looks so calm, but rattling inside. So, but how do you manage that? That is the power of yoga, right? To find balance. And God, as you said, is a great engineer. He's done phenomenal external engineering as creating this human as an engineering product, and the software there is the inner engineering that he's
Yeah.
created an operating system and a language where you can program, you can manage, and empowered you, enabled you. So it's all about the best of both, that how we manage, right? So and I think these are moments which if we realize, it is meditative and it is very empowering and it is very powerful, I would say. So with that practice of yoga, and you have gained a lot out of it, which you are putting it into use in many ways. So how are you passing it on to others, the next generation, if it has to benefit? Is there anything that you are doing your little bit?
Definitely. I do teach yoga to a few people. Whatever I know, whatever little knowledge I have, I share, and if it benefits people. My guru always, my first guru, from whom I started learning yoga, he's popularized it a lot in the US. He's so I always, I want to, I aspire to learn. The more I learn, the more I try, maybe improve a little bit, pass it on, try to teach, help people. That is one thing I do. And musically also, I do a lot of things to help spread music, uh, you know, by playing outside, by encouraging, both my kids learn music. They are very much into Veena, and they are learning from a great guru. So in my own ways, I try to propagate this, help talk about this.
Oh, nice. You said that they are learning from a great guru. Is that you?
No, no, no. Uh, they are learning from one of the torch bearer of classical music in classical Veena. Uh, one of the great artists, Dr. Jayanti Kumresh. They are her students, and she is everything about Veena. So,
And were your teachers? Who did you learn from? And brief us a little about your childhood days. Where did it all start from, and how did you gain this fine balance of both external engineering and inner engineering?
I grew up in a family where there was always some music. Um, my atte, my dad's sister who lived across the house, she was a wonderful musician during her time. Never got opportunities, but she was a great teacher as well. And I grew up around her teaching and all that. And my mother was a Veena player, but she was busy with her work. So there was always this constant encouragement in both father's and mother's side to do something in music. And so at a young age, I picked up the Veena and just started playing. I was blessed to have a great guru who used to come home and teach. So what you realize is you have to make a lot of sacrifices along the way. So I used to miss a lot of the evening cricket sessions because sir used to come and we used to play, and then I had to drop everything and go and learn music. So you learn a little bit of discipline and sacrifice, and you have to practice a lot. So as I during those days, if during summers and all, it used to be heavy rigor, a lot of practice, and every mistake I made, I still remember my guru used to have a pen in his hand, he used to whack me on my fingers if I went wrong. So you teach muscle memory, right? So then I grew up and I reached a certain. I wanted to. I could have either pursued more of that, or I went off doing technology and uh, you know uh, during the early days, that's how music was. I was playing regularly in Akashvani. I played in a lot of groups and concerts, but it kind of went into the background for a while because I went abroad and I was focused on building technology products. But music was always and has been and will be very dear to me. Then about 10 years ago, I again started taking it up more seriously. Went back to my guru who said, look, this is a lifelong journey, don't give up, pick up the threads and again start running with it. He passed away 4 years ago, and I was with him that a few hours before he passed away. He passed away while performing on the stage. As they say, a very blessed death. And he, his last message to me was so profound. And it was all about spread music and not spread happiness, right? All those wonderful things. I didn't know. Previous night I was sitting with him. Next day he passed away. And,
Wow, what a lessons that he's given to you, and also the blessings, right? So he's a blessed soul, and so are you.
and
Um,
for a brief while, I also got to learn from Dr. Jayanti Kumresh Akka. She's like Mount Everest of music, in
wow.
human terms. But she's really Saraswati Avatar on this planet. So
So fantastic. I mean, we are getting to know so many aspects related to both the external engineering and the inner engineering, right? And the third one that you said you've been drawing inspiration and which is nurturing you is the photography side of it. So let's hear a little bit about that. And what is that? If you had to show me, say, three pictures that you would have taken, and what would that be, and why is it special? Can you share with us?
hold on, let me do that.
Sorry, we are putting you on spot multiple times, but it is nice for us and our members to get a sneak peek into these beautiful moments that you would have captured.
I just picked three images from my um, albums. So this is a picture that I took more than 10 years ago when we were uh, in Scotland. And it's a very unique picture in that it captures a lot of detail. It's quite beautiful because it almost captured what we saw, what I saw in my eyes, and that's always been my goal. To the gamut, nothing can match human eye, but I'm a big, me and my family, we love traveling and visiting places, learning, experiencing cultures, and I do a lot of travel photography, portraiture, landscapes, not wildlife. So this is an example of a beautiful landscape. It was very serene, and when I look at this, I always it takes me back to that. I want to be there. And
Balu, I have to mention that 2 years ago I was at this spot where
wow,
you took this picture, and I have to tell you, this picture looks a lot better than the real one.
oh my God.
So this is like so super mesmerizing. I'm just going berserk watching this, and it's taking me back to that spot. And now I'm looking, oh, did I miss it this way? Right? Or maybe the season was different. So beautiful it is. Go on. So, which would be the second one?
I will share. Sorry.
Wow, this is so amazing.
Sorry, I don't know if I shared the wrong one. Hold on.
Or even if it is a wrong one, I would love to see it.
Oh, no.
Can you talk about this?
Yeah.
Where and how did you get this?
So this was the bamboo garden in Kyoto, Japan. So while we all associate Japan with modern technology, to me and my family, we all agree that Japan is probably one of the most beautiful places on the planet, all seasons. So when I was walking with my family, and we were in this place, I saw this very beautiful thing that you can see. I've tried to capture it. You have tall bamboo trees all around, and then the light is creeping in from the middle, and there's been so many colors, and it's just so you just are so awestruck when you see this.
Oh yeah,
So
this is like nature at its best, right? So beautiful, so serene. And look at that sun drop which is happening amongst these zones, right? Wow.
yeah, it was like at 3 o'clock or something, so it was in the middle of the day. It was beautiful.
Wow. What would be the third one if we had to see a moment that you've captured?
So as you see, I have a bias towards nature pictures and also portrait elements. But yeah, this was Amalfi Coast in Italy. Italy is again one of the most fascinating and beautiful places, and no single picture can do it. But look at this. When I stood there, I think it was at the edge of a cliff as we were driving around the place. So many colors, so many things. It was a little bit of a cloudy day. You can see water, the different depths in the ocean there, Adriatic Sea, or whatever it is. I don't know. I don't remember. And all the beautiful houses on the cliff. You just feel like standing there, soaking it in, and it's just simply serene and beautiful. To be able to capture. So my goal with photography, has always been try and capture what what you see, and you don't always get to do that because nothing can ever capture what we humans see with our god gifted human eyes. But again, the geeky side in me, the technology, I've been doing photography for more than 25 years now, and cameras have improved leaps and bounds, and some of the newer lenses and the camera bodies can really it pushes the limit. So every time I tried something new and it works, maybe it works 10% of the time, you get so excited, and this is one such occasion.
Oh, this is just mesmerizing. I feel like going there, having a look at it, maybe even have a dip in that water, It's so colorful, so beautiful, right? You've mesmerized us with music and your thought process in engineering, including how the inner engineering with respect to even yoga to the photography and both aspects from external engineering and inner engineering. Can't stop, but then if I have to ask one last question from my side to say, you've got a fantastic exposure and learning and blessings from so many teachers and nature and your own effort. So with that learning, if 3 points that you would like to give it to the younger aspiring innovators or engineers, what would that be? 3 aspects that you think are very important for people to shape up, nurture their engineering skills, be it external or internal?
Yes. I think number one, there is no substitute to hard work, perseverance, hard work. So no shortcuts in life. You might have the best talent. You might be very gifted. I've heard how Sachin Tendulkar and Virat Kohli practice. Imagine that if they can do that, all of us should do. Whatever we take up, practice, be it computer science, coding, read. The second thing is strive for excellence. Um, there was a very, again, cricket is very fond as well to me as a sport, and I enjoy music of cricket. Everybody cannot be a Tendulkar, but you still can contribute and make a difference. And that is, because you're going to work with people who are very talented, and and assume there's something good in everybody that you can learn from. There's always something that you can learn from, something in a person that you can learn from. So now that's the second point. Always see the positive side of things. What can you learn? And learning never stops. And number three, I keep saying this again: attention to detail. Let us all strive for our excellence. That last 10% that will make or break things. Whatever we take up, the finish, the polish. Um, as an example, I used a beautiful app for some booking, for some reservation that I had to make. Very big company. This was many years ago. Why this example is still vivid in me is you did everything and you went in. Finally, it hit a case where I couldn't come out of the app. I told myself, this is a great learning, because if somebody, if I were to code that, or if my team were to do it, these are the conditions. Maybe it happens once in a million or once in 500,000 times, but you've got to find that. That's where great products are created.
Yeah, in fact, you're touching another important aspect there of your learning is about that curiosity, right? That wanting to learn and the curious about what's happening. This is also another part of the inner engineering as much as required for the external engineering, right? So the 3 things that you is one is in terms of hard work, the second is in terms of strive for excellence, third is that the attitude.
Curiosity. Yes, thanks for reminding me. I talked about it at some point.
Just amazing. Thank you so much. This has been an extraordinary session, listening to you, to your music, to your watching the pictures that you have taken, mesmerizing, and your words. Thank you so much, Balu. We will open for any questions if there is, and then look forward to staying connected, and hope you are available for our members if in case they want to know more about you.
Sure,
And
sure.
how do they, is it the LinkedIn the best way to reach you?
Yes, LinkedIn is the best way to reach me.
How do they search for Balu Masti? Balumasti.
Yes.
Okay. So that is Balu Masti, extraordinary person, and a lot of extras that you've seen. So
thank you very much, Naveen, and all of you for having me, giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts. And let's always nurture the curious minds.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Over to you, Karunya.
Thank you, Balu sir, for the fascinating music and the fantabulous pictures you shared and the thoughts you shared with us. Thank you so much. We have some interesting questions here. So I would like to read out now. So the
Sure.
first one. Okay, the first question is how can inner engineering support professional growth?
That's a beautiful question. The more inner engineering you have in you, the better your external engineering becomes. You talk about professional growth. I call it, directly related to external engineering, as Naveen and I talk. It's about nurturing your curious mind. It's about being able to handle the ups and downs in professional and personal life. Inner engineering teaches you that and makes you calmer, better. Things will not go our way all the time. And how do you navigate through that is what it makes you. It is what makes you successful, right? And this will help a lot. And, I hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much. And there is one other question, which is mine to actually, even I wanted to ask you about it. Among photography, music, and engineering, which one excites you the most and why?
Uh, all of them at different points in time. They're all related. I have to do yoga. If I don't do yoga, my body immediately tells me something goes out of balance. So that's it, maybe the lack of proper oxygenation or hormonal imbalance. You all realize this when we start doing yoga regularly, right? So you start there. Then that's a stepping stone. Then I can go and practice my music. So when you start practicing your music, then some other things begin to open to you. Why do you do all that? While you do all that, there's always the engineering work that you have to do. That's bread and butter. So at different points in time, all of them are important. I have just been blessed to have great gurus who have shown me the way, and I've imbibed some of that. And it's a great thing to aspire to reach the next level in each of these. And it's a lifelong journey.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. And it was great hearing from you. And thanks for being on Hello Zo, sir. Hope you all enjoyed this talk show, and the little extras will surely inspire you in your innovation journey. I would like to announce an upcoming training program from Institute of Inspiring Innovation. We have Reinventing Yourself to Stay Relevant and Thrive, through a two-part virtual training program. Visit www.iii.today or write us on info@iii.today for any information you may need. Take care and stay safe.